receiving service from Logan, while officials acquire new garbage trucks to be operated by city employees. While acknowledging that its current agreement with local cities and the county does not include green waste services, Leonelli said that he and Cache County Executive David Zook have been discussing ways to provide that service in the spring. Waste Management, Inc. already services numerous Utah towns, cities, and counties along the Wasatch Front. KVNU News Time is 5:05. KVNU weather for tonight, clear skies, overnight low in the mid-50s, and then sunny, warm, around 90 tomorrow, into the lower 90s on Saturday. It's been to 92. It's 86 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Bring back the sounds you've been missing. Schedule a free hearing evaluation with Dr. Paul Daines at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
This is David from Roof Rescue. This past winter in Cache Valley was the worst in recent memory, reminding us of the sheer power of Mother Nature. Snow, ice dams, and record low temperatures left behind a trail of leaks, broken gutters, and damaged roofs. Let's get those issues inspected and addressed so that when next winter comes around, you can focus your attention on your family, the holidays, and winter activities instead of leaks, drips, and ice dams. Call today for your complimentary inspection at 435-999-4268 or visit us at roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KVNU News Time is 5:06. The Bureau of Land Management wants to cut leasing rates by 80% for wind and solar projects on public lands and streamline the application process in an effort to meet increasing demand for clean energy. Bobby McEnany with the Natural Resources Defense Council says that the new rules will create a system that allows public input and ensure that investments in wind and solar will benefit communities.
Wyoming has some of the best wind resources in the world. So there's going to be a lot of pressures to deal with. Doing that right is complicated, and I appreciate that the administration is starting to think about how to do that, given that development is going to happen.
Under current rules, the BLM bases wind and solar leasing rates on market rate land values, which can be tens of thousands of dollars per acre. Energy production on lands owned by all Americans have been prioritized for coal, oil, and gas extraction for over a century. McEnany notes that the oil and gas industry has had a big head start lobbying start lobbying Congress to create rules that suit their interests.
Until recently, oil and gas paid as little as $1.50 an acre. Wind and solar pay far more than they should. They've been disadvantaged for years because they're simply late to the game compared to oil and gas.
But unlike oil and gas operations, where half of federal leasing revenues are sent back to states, 100% of wind and solar revenues will go directly into federal coffers under state law. And a top lawmaker in the Utah legislature says a gondola in Little Cottonwood Canyon is not a done deal, even as the Department of Transportation moves forward with a plan that could eventually include building one. UDOT made that announcement Wednesday as part of an effort to deal with traffic and safety in the congested canyon, but it has gondola opponents crying foul. So is a gondola inevitable? Senator Kirk Cullimore, Republican from Sandy, says he doesn't think so at this point. He says all of it is contingent upon funding. Cullimore represents the area where Little Cottonwood Canyon begins, the center of a battle over a proposed gondola that would transport skiers from the mouth to the resorts. Asked if he wants to see a gondola eventually, Cullimore said his commitment has been not to fund anything that does not have broad support. Cullimore says he's listening to both sides, one of which is concerned about destroying the canyon, while the other is worried about traffic and congestion in it. Ultimately, the legislature would have to give the okay to a gondola, and that's at least several years away. KVNU News Time is 5:09. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
For the People, weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
When a tiny drop causes a ripple and becomes a wave, it travels through all corners of the planet, sustains all forms of life, and provides streams of wonder, rivers of adventure, and oceans of discovery. One drop connects us all. Reserve your visit now to Loveland Living Planet Aquarium, a nonprofit organization.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
It is critical we keep AM radio in all cars and all trucks. Hey, Sean Hannity here. More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio. It is the backbone of the emergency alert system, and that keeps us safe in dangerous times because when cell and internet services are down, AM radio might be your only lifeline. Now text AM to the number 52886. Tell Congress that we need AM radio in our cars. Text AM to 52886 today.
Standard message and data rates apply.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Just an amazing question from a listener here for a political junkie like me, because I've been reading about this actually quite a bit. The question from a listener is, there's been talk, kind of more recently than in previous years, but in previous times when it has come up, it like now kind of fizzled and gone nowhere. But talk of expanding things, like expanding the number of Supreme Court justices, expanding the number of representatives in the House of Representatives or the United States Senate. Now, on the federal level, not with the Supreme Court, and I think there is a reasonable debate to be had there. We've had more than we have now, 13. We've had less than we have now. And there's, I think, reasonable argument that unfortunately only comes up for political reasons, but a reasonable argument to be had for the court being underrepresentative right now at 9. But that's at the federal level. And when it comes to the House and the Senate at the federal level, there are actual rules about this. There's a calculation on number of seats and apportionment by population and voters. Here in Utah on the state level, which is the question this listener had, it's kind of just up to the legislature, which changes in makeup from year to year, or election to election at least, not year to year. And but the listener wants to know, is it time? And the listener sent me an interesting article from a political scientist here at Utah State University talking about this, talking about, what some of the population numbers per representative target goals are, the best ratio you can get. And my personal opinion is we're not quite there yet, but it's right around the corner and we should be talking about it now. Increasing the number of House representatives and state senators in the entire state, of course, but especially here in northern Utah, as you watch population grow, I think we are nearing probably, not as close as some parts of the Wasatch Front and the Salt Lake and Utah Valley areas are, but we're near to a point where I think there's going to be talk of needing, if not a new state senator on top of the 2 here in northern Utah already, a 3rd being added. I think we're even closer to there being serious talk of needing more House representation. And again, the issue here is fairness. It's not a partisan thing. It's not, to give Democrats more seats in the blue areas or Republicans more seats in the red areas. It's the redistricting, which is easily politicized and gerrymandered, which our legislature does every 10 years. This is a different kind of thing where it can be more simply approached. You just count the people in an area, you look at the number of House representatives for the state and say, not enough. And then, of course, a fight breaks out and a long discussion has to happen over where the new seats go. But to answer the listener's question, I personally don't feel that we're there yet, but we're close to there. But political scientist Adam Brown at BYU disagrees with me. And I'll be honest with you, he's smarter and better informed on these things than I am. I read a lot of political science because I'm a junkie, but he this is his job. This is his area of research and expertise. And he concludes something entirely different, which is that he says we're actually overdue in some areas of the state. And when you look at population numbers and numbers of representatives, either you conclude that redistricting was a complete failure, not just because it was gerrymandering again this time by the majority, but also because you have these clumps of people that have like 2 representatives, and then you have it's kind of like when you look at the Electoral College or the United States Senate itself. When you have states like Wyoming with 2 senators, and then you also have states with a lot more people with also 2 senators, is that fair representation? The argument usually is, well, yeah, that kind of balances things out, because then you don't have concentrated areas like the East Coast and the West Coast calling all the shots, because that's where most of the people in the country live. Like the argument for keeping the Electoral College, although when it comes to the Electoral College, it doesn't actually achieve that goal, and that's a discussion for another day. When it comes to representation, I agree with those who say you can't just give all the senators to the populated areas, because then you have a different kind of imbalance. But this is a discussion about just the total number of representatives in our state legislature. And BYU political scientists write that because of population growth and because it's been so long since a number was added, since the number was increased in the Utah House and the Utah Senate, that we're probably about 5 years overdue. So I'm saying we're 5 years off from needing to do this, but should start talking about it now. Political scientists, smarter people than me, whose job it is to research and think about this stuff and talk about this stuff, are saying the opposite. They're saying we're 5 years overdue, and it's time to add more. So I know that isn't a direct answer to your question, Carol, but I appreciate the question, and that's the answer that is kind of more, here's where we're at. As to what officially has happened along this front, there have been bubbles of discussion about this. There have been times when it's come up during legislative discussions, interim meetings. I believe there was actually a task force or at least talk of a task force being convened on this. If there was one, the conclusion must not have been compelling because nothing happened. So it might have been just talk of a task force and it hasn't happened yet. I don't think we need a task force. I mean, they'd have to put together a committee. That's the way the legislature works. But I don't think we need years of study on this. I think you should be able to look at population numbers, population growth projections, and say, we need X number more. What's going to be interesting, though, about that when it does happen, and again, I'm saying we've got 5 years to talk about this before we actually have to do it. Political scientists at BYU are saying the opposite, that we're about 5 years overdue and maybe need to do it now for fair representation. One thing I know for sure, whenever the conversation happens, there's going to be a heck of a fight over where those new seats go, which should be determined entirely based on population growth. But it's going to mean a shift for everybody. So it's going to be a lot like redistricting, less politicized and gerrymandered, like the congressional maps are here in Utah every 10 years, but more of a different kind of politics, not a partisan politics, not a gerrymandering for a supermajority kind of politics, more of a why is so-and-so getting another voice and we're not? So it's going to be more community versus community for lack of a better word. I hate to set this up as some kind of Utah civil war about to happen, but you're going to have disagreements over how this works, because adding representatives, say, here in northern Utah, is going to water down the influence of the Wasatch Front or even the Salt Lake and Utah Valley areas where most people live. Not much, but some. The bigger concern, I think, would come from other rural areas like southern Utah, eastern Utah, where they're going to say, why is Cache Valley getting another one and we're not? We're already very outnumbered compared to the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake, and Utah Valleys. But now we're even more outnumbered because Cache Valley's less outnumbered. So it's going to have to – my prediction is they're not going to do this until the numbers add up in such a way that an even number of seats can be added, so that you could do it, say, 2 in northern Utah, 2 in southern Utah. I'm throwing out total hypotheticals here. But, it's a fascinating thing. And again, I feel like, we're basing – this is a gut feeling on my part. That's it. So take that for what it's worth. I feel like we've got a few years that we should start talking about this now. Some evidence from research done at BYU Political Science Department, researchers there showing some conclusive evidence, I would say, that we're actually about 10 years overdue on doing this and need to get right at it. The issue, again, is fairness and representation, and you don't want to create a situation where, communities are being iced out because of the number of issues and problems they have there, but they only have one state lawmaker in the House or the Senate. That creates a kind of a bottleneck that leads to direct impact on people's lives, and overwhelmed lawmakers who, just out of necessity for the scope of the job, become a bit out of touch. So we'll see. We'll keep you posted if I hear anything from lawmakers. I did reach out to a couple of lawmakers when I read this email from Carol asking this question, asking if we had any clue what was going on this front. The lawmakers I spoke with said there are currently no serious discussions about this happening anytime soon, but did also recall, like I did, that it has come up. So kind of a half answer there for you. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
Hello.
Yes, is Katie Jensen there?
This is Katie.
A listener contacted our radio station anonymously to tell us about some of the work that you do there at the English Language Center as the director, and all of the lives that you've impacted for our community. We just want to thank you with a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs.
So cool.
Recognizing first responders and other deserving individuals in our community. Friday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk KVNU.
Tuning into the baseball game, monitoring the incoming storm, catching your favorite talk show. These are just a few of the reasons more than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month. And did you know AM radio is the backbone of the emergency alert system? It's reliable, free, and public safety depends on it. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress we need AM radio in cars.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Happening, in a few minutes here in Logan at City Hall, a public meeting of the Logan City Planning Commission, and they will be hearing from the developers, a representative of the development company behind the proposal for the Cache Valley Mall area. Now, this is a public meeting. Anyone can attend, but it is intended primarily for the Adams neighborhood as part of the ongoing Logan City Neighborhood Council program. So anyone can attend, but the goal is that Adams neighborhood, who will be most impacted by this, will get the primary seating and question asking time tonight. We will have audio of the meeting on tomorrow's show. We'll bring you some highlights of what the developers present, what any of the city council representatives there, or planning commission members, have to say. So that's tomorrow on the program. But if you live in the Adams neighborhood and can get there very quickly, at 5:30 that planning commission meeting starts, and that is first up on the agenda tonight. So still fascinating to me how many people are plugged into this one. and have an opinion on what happens with the Cache Valley Mall site. The proposal, again, would raise the current mall to ground level, build a hotel, 4 apartment buildings, and leave 150,000 square feet for retail space, which, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, is exactly what Target requires. So that's the big rumor. And it seems pretty obvious that rumor is probably true. So we'll have audio of that meeting, some of the highlights tomorrow on the program. So be sure to tune in hour 1, preceding the For the People movie show at 5 with Andy Morgan. That's tomorrow on For the People, starting at 4. So check this out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. This was a survey done of about 5,000 people, including 1,000 Utahns, by political scientists at Utah Valley University's Center for Constitutional Studies. And a lot of what it found, it was a survey on polarization, animosity, and what it found, a lot of what it found, at least, not that surprising. People tend to trust people who are on their, quote, own side more than others, or the motives, rather, trust the motives of people on their, quote, own side rather than the others. So Republicans tend to believe elected officials who are Republican have the best motives, and Democrats feel the same, and then they both feel that the other party might have, ulterior motives or even be corrupt in their motivation. That's no surprise, and that's probably not new, though it does seem to be a little more to the forefront these days thanks to social media. Nothing new about that at all. The survey also found Utah partisans are much less likely to see supporters of the opposite party as open-minded, honest, and intelligent. That I don't know if that's new. I don't remember a survey that I've read, at least, that dug into that, but still not surprising considering the polarization that is happening out there as everybody kind of groups more entrenched into their own corners. And the myth of the independent voter is really being exposed now. I've said for years on this show, independent voter is a nice word. It doesn't really exist. Many people are independent or unaffiliated on paper with their voter registration, but if you look at or were able to interview them all and talk to them about their voting habits, you'd find that though they're unaffiliated on paper, they very much have a voting pattern that makes them de facto affiliated. That's kind of where we've been at for a long time, and I really think that a lot of this is just brought more to the forefront, but not new. One thing that is new, I believe, and frightening also, in the survey, respondents here in Utah were asked about constitutional checks and balances, institutional norms, democracy, basically. And only 53% of Utahns said people should be allowed to vote, even if they're uneducated and misinformed. 53% feel like that maybe there should be some kind of aptitude test for voting. That is as undemocratic as it gets. That is as un-American as it gets. And that shocks me, 53%. Even more frightening, thankfully not a majority, but a significant number of Utahns, in this survey at least, 49% of the 1,000 Utahns surveyed in this 5,000-person survey total, 49% of the 1,000 Utahns surveyed said they would not, 49% said they would oppose a strong leader who was bending the rules of democracy in our country just to get things done. A dictator, basically. Only 49%, not a majority, said they would oppose that. That means 51%, a majority, said as long as they're getting things done, a dictator would be fine. I don't even know how to... This is not good that we're going in this direction. I have no guesses right now as to the reason. Damon Cann at USU, poli-sci might. Maybe we'll get him in here. A lot of political scientists have written about that. You can find a lot of their work out there. I've read a lot of it. It seems to be inconclusive so far. But a frightening statistic that, again, that with that 49% saying they'd oppose it, that means 51% of the 1,000 Utahns surveyed by this Utah Valley University survey said they would be okay with a dictator, someone who was willing to bend the rules of democracy in our country and our Constitution as long as they liked what that dictator was getting done. Robert Burton, director of UVU's Civic Thought and Leadership Initiative, said a lot of the survey is encouraging, that Utahns are less inclined than the rest of the country to support extra constitutional means to accomplish political works, but still very concerning that there is, so we're better than the rest of the country on this, but still concerning, he said, as I feel, that a majority said they'd be okay with something like a dictator as long as they agreed with that person politically and that person was getting things done. Whew. Check it out. I've linked to the story on this political animosity and polarization survey from Utah Valley University Center for Constitutional Studies. Link on the Facebook page. And we'll be back with more of For the People right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:30. The news brought to you by U&I Furniture. Officials with the Utah Poison Control issued a warning Tuesday to water recreators at Mattaway Reservoir to be aware of harmful algae blooms. The warning came after low levels of harmful algae were detected in areas of the reservoir. Officials advised recreators at the reservoir to avoid contact with areas where algae is visible. They also recommend not swimming, boating, or water skiing in areas where algae is visible. When fishing in the area, clean fish well and discard guts and keep pets and other animals away from the water. The Utah Department of Environmental Quality reported that algae blooms produce toxins that pose a risk to humans, pets, and livestock. Candace Colby, a pharmacist for the Utah Poison Control Center, said there are blooms all over the state. She said they had 30 calls in a day at the Poison Control Center about algae exposure to humans. Most have minor exposure, and occasionally someone may swallow water at an algae bloom site. She said the more severe cases appear in animals because they drink the water. Thousands of people in Tooele County lost power Wednesday due to two separate incidents involving a Mylar balloon and a truck accident. According to Rocky Mountain Power, the first incident occurred at 9:45 a.m. when a truck hit a power pole, causing over 1,100 customers to lose service. Hours later, a separate outage happened just before 12:45 p.m., with temperatures nearing 90 degrees in the area. The cause was a Mylar balloon striking a transmission line and knocking out power to over 2,625 customers. KVNU News Time is 5:32.
Are you a hot sleeper? Warm summer nights can make it hard to sleep. UNI Furniture recommends sleeping cooler with a gel memory foam mattress. UNI features a copper-infused gel memory foam that helps with coolness and circulation. It moves better with you, giving you the best night's sleep. UNI is also the home of Chair Heaven. There's a reason they sell so many chairs, including recliners. For over 90 years, there's always been a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Hollywood will practically shut down at midnight tonight as the Actors Union calls a strike. SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher.
We didn't make this decision willy-nilly. We tried to avert it.
Drescher says studios are being greedy, but they say they offered actors a deal with historic pay and residual increases. Hunter Biden's attorney sent Donald Trump a cease and desist letter saying the former president's rhetoric is inspiring violence and could end up harming President Biden's son. The Secret Service investigation into cocaine found at the White House is closed without finding who was responsible, says the agency. Congressional Republicans saying the Biden White House is getting special treatment. Federal regulators approving the nation's first over-the-counter birth control pill. One fatality now reported in the flooding from storms in Vermont. An autopsy report released today by the L.A. County Medical Examiner listed Lisa Marie Presley's cause of death as a small bowel obstruction. Dave Packer, ABC News.
KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies, overnight low in the mid-50s, and then sunny, warm, low 90s tomorrow, lower 90s on Saturday, and plenty of sunshine. 92 has been our high today. It's 86 right now at KVNU. Mount Logan Laundry has 55 and 80-pound washers to make your stay much shorter, located in Logan and Brigham City. Always get the latest news at CashValleyDaily.com.
When it comes to protecting your vehicle, you deserve the very best. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. We believe that protecting your vehicle should be affordable and hassle-free. As an independent auto owner's insurance agency, we have access to multiple insurance carriers and will give you options to ensure you get the auto policy that's right for you. Call us today for a free quote. Auto Owners and Quality First Insurance, 752-0101. For more information, go to q1ins.com.
Welcome to KVN News for the People. I'm really excited about this. I caught this over the weekend, courtesy of a Facebook status update, and I downloaded the report and took a look over it. And my first reaction was, here's this organization that has been around a really long time. We've talked about them on the show before, even had some representatives on the show before years ago. And they're just quietly out there doing some pretty significant stuff. And I thought we've got to get this on the show. So I reached out to them today, and they were nice enough to lend us some of their time this afternoon. It's the Bear River Land Conservancy organization. Their goal is to conserve critical lands in the Rich, Cache, and Box Elder counties, and then also provide educational opportunities, cleanup and restoration projects, opportunities for the community to volunteer and get out, tools where you can understand more about the ecology of northern Utah at large. It's an amazing website. You can find it at bearriverlandconservancy.org. But more amazingly, again, this work they've just kind of quietly been doing for the last couple of years that really should have been on the front pages of newspapers repeatedly. Joining us right now from the Bear River Land Conservancy, we have Operations Manager Gabriel Murray and Bear River Watershed Coordinator Matt Coombs. And Gabriel, Matt, I appreciate you both taking some time for KVNU today. If you can, maybe start us off, tell everybody how you each got involved in this.
Yeah, this is Gabe Murray. So I kind of came about this a little over a year ago. Prior to this position, I was working as the Bear River Watershed Coordinator with the Utah Department of Ag and Food and the Division of Water Quality. And I had been in that position for a few years, working on kind of conservation throughout the watershed. And I was informed about this position, and I thought that this was an excellent opportunity to kind of really work on conservation throughout the watershed, but on a different type of conservation than I'd been working on. And this conservation is more focused on land protection.
That's amazing. And for you, Matt?
Yeah, so I've been here just under 2 years, and I work in a shared position with Bear River Land Conservancy and Sagebrush Steppe Land Trust out of Idaho. But I actually also worked for the state of Utah, so I was with Utah DNR for about 7 years before coming over into this. And a lot of my interest really is, our private lands are so important, especially those agricultural lands and the wildlife habitat that they provide. And so I was really looking for the opportunity to work in conservation, specifically with some of those private landowners that have the lands that provide some of the public benefits we all enjoy.
This is, now, a quick aside on all of this. Representative Casey Snyder, which I apologies if either of you had to work with the guy before, but he said, Matt, that you can tell quite some stories of fishing in Alaska, and so maybe we should do a show on that one day as well. But both of you come at this from just a real appreciation of understanding what northern Utah would be like were we to lose this, right?
Yeah, very much so. I think, we have an incredible land base and incredible agricultural land base, to be more specific. That's all private lands, and those private lands provide just a tremendous amount of habitat and also food that we rely on. So it really is critical that we try to preserve kind of key pieces of this landscape.
This is, it's an opportunity really to understand more, but also to do a lot to help And back to Representative Snyder, and I'm joking. I know he's not that bad to work with, but if you do want to tell any stories, feel free. We love to give him a hard time here on the show. When he was working with the organization, I know things were, things were happening kind of on a smaller scale, and it was, doing what you can with what you had. And then I see this report over the weekend, Gabe, maybe for you specifically. The last 2 years for the Bear River Land Conservancy, to me, it seems like it's been a huge couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're a small nonprofit, and, when Casey was running the organization, it was just one staff. Now there's 1.5 of us, so not too much more capacity. But, we've really relied on partnerships to be able to accomplish what we've accomplished in the last year or two. And if it wasn't for partnerships, we wouldn't have these stories to tell.
Sure.
So it's really our partners that have allowed us to make this happen.
But you've obviously been very, good at choosing those partnerships and good. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I from the report, we're looking at how many acres now? Just in the last couple of years, how many acres of land set aside for conservation?
Yeah, a little over 4,000.
That's amazing.
A lot of that, though, again, was due to our partnerships and really being able to leverage opportunities and partners throughout the watershed to achieve numbers like that. So
one of those projects was a smaller agricultural conservation easement here in the valley, and the other one was a larger conservation easement with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Ah, okay.
We kind of work with a pretty diverse mix of projects and funding partners and that sort of thing on each of our projects.
It's honestly just amazing to see, and I know for a lot of Cache Valley residents, they might be, familiar with some of the conservation work that the Bear River Land Conservancy has done when it comes to Bear River bottoms, some work out in Trenton as well. But you've got a footprint in the Bear Lake Preserve, the Menden Meadow Preserve, and you're hoping, as I understand it, to kind of expand this going forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, 3 to 5 projects right now in the works, kind of throughout Cache County and Ridge County. So we're actively pursuing additional conservation easements and working with landowners as we speak to try to really expand what we're doing and protect more area and more habitat.
It's honestly just amazing to see. For listeners, they do have a newsletter you can subscribe to. You can also connect with them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all of that can be found at bearriverlandconservancy.org. Again, an organization just kind of quietly doing some huge things. Thousands of acres of land set aside for conservation through easements, partnerships, and more. And also, Gabe, you and I talked about this earlier today. I think this is so cool. But more than $7 million you've been able to raise for the organization in the last few years through grants and things like that. That's a huge amount of money. I mean, though, obviously we need a lot more to conserve what we need to conserve probably. That's a huge amount of money for a nonprofit organization to get access to. Has that taken some creativity?
Yeah, it's really taken a little bit of creativity, but also partnerships. I really want to emphasize that a lot of the funding that we've been able to kind of line up and bring into alignment is a lot of federal funding for projects.
Sure.
So a lot of that funding will go directly to on-the-ground conservation. So that's really the objective of a lot of that funding is to kind of put conservation on the ground. Obviously, as we continue to grow, we also need support, right? So we are a nonprofit, and we are a 501c3 charitable organization. And so, as we kind of look to grow and put more conservation on the ground, we are also looking to grow as an organization, and we definitely need the support of the community to achieve that.
I think it's important, too, for those who there are those who sometimes bristle at the thought of setting things aside. The phrase oftentimes will be locking them up. And that's something as an organization, you guys have always tried to stress that you're talking about conservation so that it's still there in the future for use. In fact, just a few days ago, you were celebrating, I can't believe they do this, but you were celebrating on your Facebook page this is a rare thing. There's rarely enough water to actually do this, but some folks kayaking Bear River's Black Canyon, which is just amazing to see. So you're about use, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely about agricultural use when it comes to our private land conservation. And again, these are working lands that we're working to conserve.
Sure.
And so it's about what those lands do as a benefit to the watershed as a whole, whether that be providing habitat connectivity, whether that be providing food and fiber for us into the future. We're really working to protect these lands. And we're also, I really want to emphasize that we're working with willing landowners.
Sure.
And so we're not working to necessarily take something away or prevent something from happening so much as we're working with willing landowners to exercise their rights.
Sure.
To provide a legacy, to provide benefits to the public, and also to provide for future agriculture on this landscape.
The Bear River Land Conservancy working throughout, 3 counties, the Tri-County area here, as it's known here in northern Utah, Rich, Cache, and Box Elder counties, setting aside thousands of acres of land, working land, as Gabe has explained, for various uses, but also conserving it for the future. A lot of this land would already be gone if they hadn't done this. And Gabe, as you've mentioned, and Matt, maybe you can weigh in on this as well, but there is an ecological impact to this. We've seen recently some news stories, I think, that kind of highlight a little bit of what we're talking about when we talk about the ecological ramifications of conservation. We've seen these stories of flooding along the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake, in which you see these parks or these meadow areas that have been intentionally left as drainage sites. You also see a report of lawmakers traveling to Israel recently, where they talked about these biofiltering systems, natural biofiltering systems necessary to having clean drinking water there in Israel. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about, right?
I think on certain levels, when you talk about protecting lands along river corridors, you're talking about kind of providing for green infrastructure that allows for natural flooding to occur without, inevitably flooding homes and having to rebuild those homes. So, I mean, really what you're talking about is smart land preservation in those scenarios. But we're also working to, conserve lands throughout the landscape. Other lands, that we're working on help to provide mule deer habitat, wintering habitat. They help to provide corridors for elk, corridors for migratory birds. So kind of a broad spectrum there.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely become one of our big areas of emphasis, is kind of connectivity in the landscape, particularly from an ecological perspective. And that's both, fish and aquatic habitat, as well as those mule deer corridors, critical stopover sites for migratory birds, and kind of those most important pieces of land that allow movement of those species. And a lot of that happens to be on working agricultural lands that have provided that, for the last 100+ years. And so that has become a lot of our emphasis as an organization.
Again, amazing work being done by this organization. As you've heard just a little, and we're just tip of the iceberg here with listing some of the things that you can find just at their website in the news section, bearriverlandconservancy.org. And how does so voters recently approved the Cache Open Space Bond, and the Cache Open Space Advisory Committee has now been populated and set up and has begun working. How does that change the dynamics here? Did you all get a chance to help inform them as well from your own experience?
Yeah, so Bear River did definitely, provide support into that effort, and we've been involved in a lot of those conversations. With the bond initiative, I think, if nothing else, it certainly increased awareness around conservation easements and some of the things that we're doing as a tool for landowners, but also, something that benefits the public and, the regional identity of Cache Valley and surrounding areas and that sort of thing. And, hopefully as that program comes about, then we'll be able to, apply for and use some of those resources and kind of match them up with, other funding sources from NRCS and Utah Department of Ag and Food and various folks to kind of leverage those funds into achieving more conservation on the ground.
You can connect with the Bear River Land Conservancy organization again on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They have a newsletter you can subscribe to. Visit their website, of course. A lot of great stuff there, bearriverlandconservancy.org. You can donate directly there. They do rely on financial support from the community as well as these grants we've discussed and more. You can drink Logan Canyon coffee if you're an IBIS fan. Every bit of that helps. A portion of every sale of the Logan Canyon blend goes to the Bear River Land Conservancy each year. And, of course, volunteer. You guys are always looking for volunteers to help with many things from restoration projects to cleanup to actually getting involved through these volunteer committees. Honestly, just a fascinating organization. But for someone out there looking at maybe volunteering, for a question for you both, Matt and Gabe, what should they expect and what should their first step be?
Yeah, I think the first step should probably just be to reach out to us through our website. We have a contact page. Our newsletter kind of highlights a couple upcoming volunteer events that we have, so you can look for that in the newsletter. Our volunteer events kind of vary, it's everything, like you said, from doing a little bit of restoration to some cleanup, also to some Ute ladies tresses, monitoring. So we have a little bit of everything for everyone.
Very nice. Matt and Gabe, both of you, appreciate your time today, especially with me reaching out on short notice. For listeners, if you'd like to see the report we referenced here and some of the amazing work done by the Conservancy over the last couple of years, I've linked to it on our Facebook page, but you can also find that and more ways to donate, get involved, see their previous work, upcoming projects, even some tools to help you understand the ecology of northern Utah better when it comes to water, land, and everything. BearRiverLandConservancy.org is their website. You can also find them on Facebook, Instagram, and more. Our guests have been Gabriel Murray, Operations Manager, and Matt Coombs, Bear River Watershed Coordinator with the Bear River Land Conservancy. Matt and Gabe, thanks to you both for your time. To our listeners for your time. We'll be back right after this.
When you buy Napa Auto Parts, you're getting the best. Pull into any one of the 5 locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts stores. They'll not only make sure you get the right battery or wiper blades, but they'll even help you install it. And if you need other work done, they can recommend a dozen Napa Auto Care Centers with ASE certified technicians. That's Napa know-how.
The results are in for the 2023 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Pick up your free copy of the Winners Magazine. Go to bestofnorthernutah.com to find magazine pickup locations. Nearly 700,000 votes were cast to determine gold and silver winners. Help us recognize these businesses and let's support all of our local businesses by shopping local. Thank you for participating in the 2023 Best of Northern Utah contest.
Best of Northern Utah.
Millions of Americans with TMJ, also known as TMD, may be relieved to learn a neuromuscular dentist can alleviate their chronic head, neck, and back pain, clicking or popping in the jaw, and limited jaw movement. A neuromuscular dentist can find and maintain a pain-free, relaxed jaw position with orthotics, crowns, and veneers. Find a neuromuscular dentist at leadingdentist.com.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Just a reminder, underway as we speak. So if you aren't there, you're going to be late or maybe miss it. But developers behind the Cache Valley Mall proposal to knock down the mall, build 4 apartment buildings, a hotel, and 150,000 square foot retail space, which is exactly what Target wants. They are presenting, as we speak, at a planning commission meeting with Logan City to the Adams Neighborhood residents primarily. It's open to the general public, but the invitation directly went out to Adams neighborhood residents. There will be future public hearings and more for the general public, but this is kind of a combined planning commission / neighborhood council meeting, giving the Adams neighborhood a chance to weigh in first, which I think is fair. They are officially underway and will, like I say, bring you the highlights. It's been really, really great to see how many people are engaged in this. So we're trying to do our best to make it a part of the show as often as we can. If you want to see the proposal, by the way, it is up on the Logan City website, and I've linked to that on our Facebook page. Final bit of news here for the day. This is surprising news, kind of. There's a controversial Utah State Board of Education member named Natalie Klein. She was the first elected to an open seat after Republican lawmakers made the elections partisan. These were previously nonpartisan races. Senator Dan McKay, who was then a House representative, ran a bill. No one opposed it. It passed. The governor signed it. And the first person elected under that was Natalie Klein. She has since been reprimanded by the board, her colleagues, for tweeting white supremacist propaganda, for tweeting on Facebook, sharing links to an organization calling for praising Uganda and their legislation making homosexuality illegal and punishable by prison. She's coming from a very far right position, and she's been kind of a firebrand. I've always assumed she's doing it for attention, and just kind of rolled my eyes. Others find it very upsetting that a person like this is there on the Utah Board of Education, not doing Board of Education things, but just kind of being a social media star. She's polarizing, to say the least, but she is under an internal board investigation. It was announced today. KSL News reporting that her recent social media posts and comments made about a Utah Board of Education staffer apparently bordered on threatening or even harassment. Klein represents District 11 of the Board of Education. She alleged on Facebook that, quote, schools are complicit in the grooming of children for sex trafficking and brainwashing them into gender-bending ideologies. The Board of Education responded, condemning Klein's comments, calling them inflammatory, divisive, and unfair to Utah teachers. Again, she's accusing teachers of grooming as a Utah State Board of Education representative. Just bonkers. So the board has the most official action they've taken. They have officially launched an internal review. Auditors revealed today in this report that 87 complaints had been made against Klein since the time she was last publicly reprimanded by the board, which was September of 2021. Kelsey James, spokeswoman for the Utah State Board of Education, said the board has received more than 1,500 complaints during that time, many tied directly to things Klein had said to people in person at board meetings and other events. The direct 87 complaints were on 22 different topics, the auditor said. And James said they have received a number of concerns by the hotline about Klein herself and her behavior at an event that several parents felt was threatening. One parent even reading into a report saying, I was pretty sure she was going to throw that at me. What that in that isn't clear. So board representatives confirm at least two matters in this whole controversy: that recent comments about teachers and state education staff members in her recent social media posts, again alleging that they are complicit in grooming children for sex trafficking. Quite a claim for a board member to make about Utah teachers. KSL News says they have learned that 7 members of the board called a meeting with Chair Jim Moss Tuesday this week and demanded that something be done about Klein. It's no additional information about specific remarks by which board members, but and Klein was the last action the board took. She was censured for comments deemed as homophobic back in 2021. Klein herself, KSL says, did not respond to multiple requests for comment. The statement from the Board of Education says leadership strongly disapproves of recent social media statements by one board member about Utah teachers and schools and claiming they are complicit in grooming children for sex trafficking. Such an allegation is against our overall policy of approach, and such an allegation against schools generally is inflammatory, divisive, and very unfair to Utah teachers who put Utah students first every day and interfere with efforts to provide thoughtful solutions to difficult issues. Klein is, at this point, an unproductive member of the board. We condemn any harassment or discrimination against teachers and students on the basis of sexual orientation as provided by Utah law. So a pretty stern comment from the overall board about one of its own members. Check it out. I've linked to the story. We'll see where this goes from here. That's on our Facebook page. And that is our time for today. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, highlights tomorrow from the big meeting happening right now at the Logan City Hall Planning Commission. We'll have highlights of the presentation from developers tomorrow on the show, as well as the For the People movie show. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU Logan.
KVNU Logan.